How did the popular a-hole of your school get the taste of their own medicine? Story 1. She was 2 years older than me and gave me hell, soaking my sleeping bag in nail polish remover during summer camp and bullying me during the school year. She only stopped when she had to change schools because she was expelled for doing it with a student in the school bathroom. Out of curiosity, I did a checkup on her not too long ago. It turns out she's a substance user who's in and out of rehab with 3 kids, different dads, and she still lives with her parents. Story 2. As a jobless single parent, it's said that the mother left him after the kid was eating solids. I feel sorry for the kid. Story 3. She got knocked up in grade 12. I never had any problems with her personally, but she was a major pain in the bum to a lot of people. Karma, I guess. Story 4. After a day of teasing me, I shoved him into the wall and screamed, "Shut the heck up!" He got a week of ISS, he got a week of regular suspension. Most of my bullies left me alone after that. The next year, he tried to act like we were buddy-buddy. I told him to bugger off. Story 5. He thought he was Wesley Snipes and walked around grabbing girls and acting untouchable. He was on the rugby team and thought he was tougher than steel. Cue my friend, Dan the Quiet Kid. Discount Blade shoves what was meant to be an easy target. Dan fights back and injures the bully's limbs. No more rugby, no more random touching, no more bullying. Story 6. My teacher. She loved to use humiliation against me. I was severely depressed at the time, and she thought I was a slacker. I'm a little person, and she would get me to turn off the lights for the projector or to write on the whiteboard, only to feign ignorance and apologize when I struggled to reach. One day she crossed the line, and I went to the deputy head teacher. He decided to reprimand her during a lesson in front of her entire class to give her a taste of humiliation too. Story 7. The teacher wouldn't let one guy in my classroom go to the restroom to wee, so he did it on an Arizona can. When the bell rang, the guy started heading to the restroom to empty the can, and the biggest bully in the school bumped into him, took the can and, of course, sipped it. He soon realized it didn't taste like tea. It was glorious. Story 8. This girl I went to high school with was straight whiny, but had some clout. A year after high school, she got caught being an autistic kid she babysat. There was baby cam audio of her saying something along the lines of, did that hurt? No one cares. And the kid screaming for her to stop. She had her face in the local newspaper and everything. Then she got pregnant, and the baby daddy left her, and she came out and has a hot girlfriend and now is a moderately small business owner. I guess sometimes the bad people win. Story 9. Varsity basketball, volleyball, and softball player, member of the school's NHS leadership, in contention for valedictorian. Got an underage DUI, kicked off all 3 teams out of NHS, and couldn't keep her grades up. Story 10. Popular jerk. For some reason picked on me a lot. Hated me and he got 4 people to beat me. The next day my brother, 3 years older than me, a 6'5" giant freak of nature, knocked him out in one punch. Best day of my life. Story 11. Big football stud got his bum kicked by a bunch of cowboys for mouthing off one too many times. They went to college to play ball there. Then got into substances and was a jerk to his team. Bounced around a couple of NFL teams as a quarterback after that and played horribly. Then went to jail a couple of times for theft related to his prescription drug problem. His name is now famous for screwing up. You can probably guess his name. Story 12. Kid bragged about how rich his family was and talked about how he was going to inherit his parents' business. Business went under a whole 39 days later, and I got an email from him recently. I've got a business proposal, and since I know you're successful in business, thought we could cooperate on a project. I responded with, I would, but you inherited your parents' business, so you don't need me. Story 13. By me doing my current events report, which ruined the star athlete's future. My school had rules saying if you got caught with substances, you couldn't play sports. One of the popular jocks got arrested, but since he was the star football player, the school just kind of looked the other way and nothing happened. My social studies teacher would have current event days, where everybody would have to bring in an article from a newspaper or magazine and talk about it in class. Buried super deep in the local section of the paper was a little one-paragraph article about a bust that listed the names of everyone who got arrested, which included the jock. Yeah, I used that article for the current events topic. His teammates in that class were less than happy with me. Not only that, but the school started talking about my little stunt, which meant the coaches and administration couldn't just ignore his arrest anymore, and he got kicked off the team. Not on the team anymore, colleges that were offering scholarships started asking questions, and eventually pulled those offers. Oops, guess the guy shouldn't have been such a jerk to me over the years. Story 14. 16-year-old student at the private boarding school I worked at, who had a mother who raised him to think he could do no wrong, and a clique of friends who aided and abetted him in bullying younger students, and his victims were always too scared to say anything. Until he picked on the wrong kid. It started with low-level harassment, and then one evening in the TV lounge, the 16-year-old grabbed a bag of sweets from a 13-year-old and threw them in the bin. The 13-year-old let out a yell of absolute rage, charged at the older kid and spear-tackled him in a way that would have made a pro wrestler proud, just as the duty member of staff walked into the room. The lighting must have been poor in there because nobody mentioned witnessing the spear tackle, but they were all queuing up to tell the member of staff how the 16-year-old had been picking on the younger kid, and several other victims finally got up the nerve to come forward as well. The older kid was suspended for 2 weeks for bullying, and never quite managed to live down the day he got spear tackled by a boy who was a foot shorter and 2 stone lighter than him. Story 15. Band was pretty popular where I lived. There were super popular kids in the band. They had a lot of hazing. I don't know their pecking order, but if someone senior to you told you to do something band-related, you had to do it. There was this one girl who was the second senior person in the whole band. She was always egging on everyone every single day. One day, that one girl who was senior to her called her out and made her march all over the school in front of everyone and made her sing a bunch of chants and more. I wasn't even in a band, and it still seemed harsh to me. Story 16. So in junior high, there was a kid, we'll call him Mark, and he would always pick on another kid, Steve, in the gym. Mark would do things like spray him with axe or slap the back of his head. One day, Steve was carrying a book and Mark tried to take it. But I guess Steve had been practicing Aikido or something, because one moment Mark's hand is on the book, and by extension, Steve's hand. And the next, Mark is laying on his back and Steve is calmly walking away. Boss move. Story 17. A guy really had an immortality complex. He thought he could and did get away with anything. We're talking seriously messed up stuff here. The one day he decided to brag about showing bad videos to his young sister. Even worse, he said this in a Discord server that a lot of people were in. Long story short, someone called Child Protective Services, and he had a very bad day. Story 18. A popular girl bullied me all through middle school. Then in high school, she sat next to me the day we were given one of those read the directions tests. She was not so wise as to read the directions. I got to sit there for 10 sweet minutes watching her panic more and more over the ridiculous tasks the test asked of her. Story 19. He was the most attractive boy in school. Girls would literally fight to be his girlfriend. Then, like Prince William, his free trial of hair and premium face expired and he got downgraded. Basically went from a PS5 to Mr. Game & Watch over the course of 5 years. Story 20. They now sell substances and went to court for hurting a 12-year-old for not paying £15 for 1 gram of pot. Story 21. She, white, called my friend the N-word. My friend, this real skinny girl who was one of those kids who never ever had gotten into trouble, hit her square in the jaw and gladly took the out-of-school suspension. The same girl started feeling woozy during a blood drive I was volunteering at, and I helped her over to one of those giant trash barrels to throw up in. She bent over and lost consciousness and fell into the trash. Literally. Know your place, trash. Story 22. He thought it was all so cool during gym class, climbing the basketball hoop and sitting on it, while our teacher kept telling him to come down. And then he got stuck, didn't know how to get down, and our teacher made us all sit down and stare at him. No one was allowed to talk as this dude awkwardly tried to find a way down until he half climbed, half fell in the middle of this dead, silent gym. Story 23. The popular kids all stayed hot and married each other, but I imagine that having the exact same relationship and social circle since the age of 14 probably has a certain Groundhog Day element to it. Story 24. This kid used to taunt me every day at school, and for the longest time it took the abuse. One day he pushed me too far. I think he started talking smack about my mother, and I pushed him to the ground and roughed him in front of everyone. He ended up with bruises. Dude never said another word to me. Story 25. The biggest bully in high school always picked on me. I always just let it go. I sometimes fought back, but then his gang of friends would jump in and push me back. The very last day of senior year, we were walking out to our cars after graduation. He said, "Hey man, I'm sorry for being such a jerk." I just went wide-eyed, shaking my head, laughing, and was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" He went on to become a cop. I'm still waiting for the time that karma repays him for my 6 years of hell. Story 26. He got up by a girl. He was a racist a-hole and it was a black girl. He transferred to a different school 2 weeks later. Story 27. My high school bully married her high school sweetheart. They had a baby recently. Honestly, I wish her all the best, but I don't think she's changed, and she's probably going to raise her kid to be the same way. Story 28. Star athlete picked on the fat kids in gym. Fast forward a couple decades, he's fat and bald. Saw him using a Walmart scooter recently, buying crap food. One of the kids he picked on got in shape, stayed that way and became a top-tier endurance athlete. So sweet. Story 29. There was this guy in my high school named Toby who was a massive dude, but also popular due to being in the basketball team. Loved to pick fights and play rough. Toby bit off more than he could chew when he elbowed this one classmate named Andy during PE, playing a friendly game. After taking the hit, Andy just straight up decked Toby in the face, knocking him and his front teeth out. Toby learned his lesson and stopped being a problem after that. Story 30. In middle school, when the bell rang to change classes, the hallways were a horrific traffic jam. Everyone suffered through trying to get to their lockers in the next class on time. Enter the annoying popular guy, who thought it was funny to sneak up behind some unsuspecting student who's at his locker and smack the back of the student's head, causing the student to bang his head into his locker. A-hole guy got several warnings to stop, but he didn't. He thought it was so funny. Then one day he picked on the wrong student. The dude got punched square in the face, fell down and lost a tooth. Not a single person, from teacher to student, came to his defense. When his parents came to school all upset, everyone told them their son got what he deserved. Story 31. We had this high school dude who pulled off the worst pranks toward everyone. He was one of those feeling smart brats that acted all tough and all. His most popular pranks included locking some kid's locker with a bunch of zip ties, spraying juice all over another guy's backpack, putting laxatives in my best friend's drink, and he would often draw wieners in your important papers. One day, a bunch of kids in my AP bio class decided to get him back for everything. We decided to give him a taste of his own medicine, so we set up the best plan. One guy from the group was pretty close to him as they were both in the water polo team, and we used him as a gateway for step 1. At one of their practices, some guys in on the plan took his backpack where he held his water bottles. He was one of those wussies who would wait to change into his swim shorts in the stall, so they took their opportunity then. They filled the water bottles up with a whole lot of 14-hour laxatives. Part 1 of the plan was now complete. Now, we waited till the end of the year for this one reason. We had AP tests to take the next morning. We had to load him up. This is where my involvement was needed. I was pretty convincing with my fake personality and viewed me as a cool guy and friend. So during the complimentary free breakfast before the AP test, my buddy and I managed to get him to load up on all the food available, claiming he needs to bulk up for the water polo tournament and semifinals coming up. Step 2 complete. Now my school is pretty strict with the AP finals. You aren't allowed to leave your table in the first half of the test, the reason being the teachers thought you had no reason to go to the bathroom other than to cheat just after having the opportunity to go. The following took place in the gym. He was to my far right, a bit in front of me. I saw him become uneasy early mid-test, and I assume it was to ask if he could go to the bathroom, and thank God the biggest dick of a teacher was the one that came to his calling. The teacher nodded no, mumbled some words, and walked away. 10 minutes passed. He grows more uneasy. I focused on the test, but roughly 3 minutes later, I hear a chair squeak loudly and see him sprinting to the locker rooms. Some teachers yelled, and all of the kids involved in the prank and present eyeballed each other. Small smirks across all our faces. Bell rings, the test is over, and we leave the gym. One of the boys runs after us, bursting in laughter, and we all join him. Turns out that one friend was sitting in the back of the gym during the test, and the jerk ran right past him. Now apparently, as the guy ran past my friend, was hit with the most horrid smell. We were 90% sure he pooped himself, which wasn't part of the plan, but a happy ending nonetheless. We later talked to a trustworthy, quiet girl who was sitting behind the guy, and she said before he ran off, she experienced the most troubling noises and smells of her life. So with all the evidence provided, we're pretty certain he did in fact end up pooping himself. As for the guy, he claimed he felt sick. He never returned to the test, so we felt kinda bad at first, but we heard news he was able to retake it on a makeup day. He also never messed with anyone after that. In fact, he became quieter and a bit nicer, probably due to embarrassment. All in all, mission accomplished. My group of boys were loyal as heck, as no one ever spilled a single word as to our involvement. We all laughed to this day about how the laxative almost worked exactly as advertised. It was like clockwork. Story 32. There was this huge bully when I was in high school, and I was kinda fat, not hiding it. 7 years later, 5 years of military forces, 2 tours and deployment, I went back home and my brother invited me to a poker game. I go, and guess who's at the table? That darn bully. Not sure if he remembers me because I changed a lot. Anyway, during the game, we talked about what we've been doing. I told him I just bought a house, done 2 tours, doing good, and he goes, well, after school, I started working in a furniture shop, but it closed, and now I'm unemployed. I know it's mean to revel in other people's misfortune. At that moment, I could only think, screw him. No better revenge than living well. Story 33. Star quarterback tried to take advantage of his girlfriend. She was a Golden Glove boxer. She put him in the hospital for a week. Oh, that's a satisfying read. Story 34. This happened to my adult son, S, in early high school. Popular bully, PB, started picking on him not long after S was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Maybe because S got attention and trips to the nurse's office? Who the hell knows? Anyway, PB would smack his books out of his arms, strip him, try to grab his backpack off, etc. I had no idea. However, at the time, S's blood sugar levels were skyrocketing. I had to take him to his endocrinologist twice, even changed his medication. Once he mentioned PB was bullying him, it all clicked. The bullying had him so stressed he couldn't control his blood sugar. When the bullying stopped, he stabilized again. Fast forward to shortly before graduation. PB, now adult age of 18, was busted for CP. I don't have all the details. He was immediately expelled, in court, convicted, and didn't graduate. Ha! Screw that little monster. Story 35. It was a long time ago, in the early 2000s. I was in high school when this guy was harassing classmates in his class. He bullied kids for random reasons. I can't remember the exact ones. He would mostly use what he was able to find to taunt other kids. Given the fact I had misophonia, the dude took the information and used many things that caused sensory overload. It was even happening on the school bus. Finally, one day, the bully was told he couldn't board the bus for harassment and was assigned to one meant for those with disabilities. That wasn't all. He was told to report to a different room for the whole day, without being told why. Of course, the bully complained, but the teacher in the classroom was sent to tell him off. I wasn't sure what was going on until after a few days later. It turns out the bus driver had noticed what was going on and reported the bullying. Soon, a few teachers who work with disabled kids reported the guy as well. He was ordered to read and was tested in a law regarding hate crimes, as harassing someone with a disability could be grounds for such a crime. The punishment varies under Massachusetts law. Since it was mostly harassment, it was mainly a fine, mandated course, and community services. The icing on the cake, the community service order was to work as a custodian at a nursing home. Everything else aside, who was the genius who thought, "Hey, this kid's a bully. Let's make him ride with the disabled kids. That'll set him straight." Story 36. I was actually the one to put him down, if only for a day. He was really good at sports, but I was better at soccer. I got called up for line soccer and I'm up against him. I do a really fast scissors and then pull back as he tries to get around me, and he trips and falls to the ground. I smash the ball into the wall and get point while he pulls himself off the ground. It felt amazing, and me, the nerdy and crazy kid, was popular for a while. Story 37. In junior high, this one popular kid had a habit of stealing things from my backpack, spreading humiliating rumors about me, doing his best to make sure I would have no friends, vandalizing my bike multiple times, and is likely responsible for why I'm physically disabled. He would get other students to join in all of this. I got smart and gathered enough evidence of the harassment, and he ended up getting to be followed around the school every day by a teacher's aide for the entire last half of grade 9. He lost almost all of his following when this happened. He later ended up on the front page of the city newspaper, wanted for substance-related crimes. Story 38. Mine went from being a rich jerk, football hero, or he thought anyway, that talked down to everyone because his daddy had money. Right after high school, his dad went bankrupt and developed a gambling addiction. Little Bradley had to get a job and drop out of college. I pulled up to the full-service pump. Here comes Bradley, all dapper in his uniform, sees me and says, "Will that be reg or super, sir?" I just smiled and said, "Reg, my good man," and snickered. He pumps the gas, then went inside. Another employee came out to collect the money. Bradley was too embarrassed to come back out. Bradley did go back to college, with student loans, and did graduate. He now works in social services and turned into a decent guy, after he fell off his high horse. Well, redemption is better than karma, I assume. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this next video. The YouTube algorithm really thinks you like it.